The message arrived on every screen on Earth at the exact same moment. A cold, emotionless voice echoed through satellites, military networks, and civilian devices alike. Attention, planet Earth. You are hereby ordered to comply with Galactic Law. Failure to do so will result in enforcement. Across the world, time seemed to stop. Stock markets froze. Flights were grounded. Governments went silent. To the Galactic Council, Earth was just another violent, divided species. A planet that couldn't even control itself. Their conclusion was simple. Humans needed to be ruled. Then, without warning, the transmission was interrupted. A new signal cut in. Human-made. Calm. Perfectly clear. And a single voice responded, not with fear, not with anger, but with quiet amusement. That's adorable. You think Earth doesn't have laws? In that moment, the galaxy realized something it had never considered. It hadn't just threatened Earth. It had challenged something far more dangerous. Human rules. Axiom Prime was not merely a planet, it was a verdict. Built across layered dimensions and stabilized by technologies older than most stars, it served as the seat of the Galactic Federation, where order was not debated but imposed. Here, civilizations were not welcomed, they were classified. At the center of Axiom Prime stood the High Council chamber. Its walls shimmered with living metal, responding to authority rather than sound. Hundreds of counselors sat in silence as a single command activated the chamber's core display. Species file accessed, human. Thousands of holographic panels ignited at once, each projecting the same image, a small blue planet wrapped in clouds and oceans. Earth. Data streams began to scroll with mechanical precision. Civilization status, emerging interstellar. Conflict index, critically high. Internal governance, fragmented. Compliance probability, low. Archregent Xyler, the presiding authority of the council, leaned forward. His form was tall and angular, forged from bioalloy rather than flesh, his face incapable of empathy by design. This species is unstable, Xyler said. They wage war against themselves with alarming consistency. They develop weapons faster than ethics. Left unregulated, they will either destroy their own world or disrupt others. The panels shifted. Earth's history unfolded in brutal efficiency, trenches filled with bodies, cities reduced to ash, nuclear fire blooming across continents. Millions dead, not by alien hands, but by human ones. To the Council, this was not tragedy. It was evidence. The Galactic Law existed for one purpose, containment. Its foundational doctrine was absolute. Any civilization approaching interstellar capability must submit to Federation oversight. Sovereignty ends where galactic stability begins. Earth had crossed that threshold without permission. It had launched probes, transmitted signals, and begun listening to the stars as if the universe were free to explore. It was not. What they call independence, Xyler continued, we recognize as chaos. Justice Overseer Ctharn rose from his station, his eyes glowing with controlled energy. His species had authored more extinction rulings than any other in Federation history. Protocol is clear, Ctharn stated. A formal warning will be issued. If Earth complies, it will be designated a protected civilization. If not, enforcement measures will be enacted. No one asked what enforcement meant. Everyone already knew. Orbital surveillance grids. Technological suppression. Military neutralization. And if resistance persisted, selective planetary reduction. A structure above Axiom Prime began to hum. A focused energy conduit aligned itself with a distant spiral arm of the galaxy. Coordinates locked onto a minor star system, unremarkable by Federation standards. Sol. Earth's direction. Transmit the warning, Xyler ordered. The beam launched, faster than light, faster than causality itself, carrying not violence, but authority. The Council regarded the act as routine. Earth was not the first world to be corrected, and it would not be the last. Most species reacted the same way. They panicked. They argued. Then they submitted. Zyler allowed himself a moment of certainty. They will obey, he said. They always do. What the council failed to notice was the absence in their data. They had measured human aggression. They had cataloged human violence. They had even simulated human resistance. But they had overlooked something far more dangerous. Humans did not merely fight. They regulated themselves. They created laws not to appear civilized, but to survive themselves. They punished their own kind for breaking rules they believed necessary, even when it cost them power, territory, or pride. A civilization capable of restraining itself was rare. A civilization willing to enforce its own laws was rarer still. As the warning sped toward Earth, the Galactic Federation believed it was placing humanity on trial. In truth, it had done something far more reckless. It had placed Galactic Law itself in front of a species that understood rules better than anyone realized. And Earth was about to respond. For the first time in modern history, Earth went quiet. The alien transmission did not arrive like a missile or a storm. It arrived politely, cleanly, and everywhere at once. Every satellite received it. Every military network decoded it. Every civilian screen, phones, televisions, aircraft displays, paused whatever they were showing and replaced it with the same message. Planet Earth must comply with Galactic Law. There was no countdown. No visible threat. Just certainty. Airports shut down within minutes. Flights already in the air were ordered to land at the nearest possible runway. Stock markets froze mid-transaction as automated systems failed to process a reality they were never designed for. News anchors stared into cameras, mouths open, scripts forgotten. Across continents, people felt the same sensation, not panic yet, but something colder. Recognition. The United Nations emergency chamber filled faster than at any moment in its history. Heads of state appeared on secure feeds, some still in shock, others already arguing. Military chiefs spoke in clipped sentences, while scientists tried, and failed, to sound calm. We can't trace the origin, one intelligence director admitted. The signal didn't travel through space the way ours do. It simply arrived. Weapons analysts confirmed the worst-case scenario. The energy signature behind the transmission suggested a technological gap measured not in decades, but in millennia. There was no defense system on Earth capable of intercepting something that advanced. If they decide to enforce, a general said quietly, we won't even see it coming. Public reaction spiraled. Social media flooded with theories, prayers, denial, and rage. Some hailed the aliens as cosmic judges who would finally end human corruption. Others called for resistance, even as experts explained that resistance would be meaningless. Cities saw spontaneous protests. Religious leaders argued over whether the message was divine or demonic. Markets crashed anyway. Earth was doing what it always did under pressure, arguing with itself. Yet beneath the chaos, something else was happening. A layer of Earth's authority structure never appeared on television. It never released statements. It did not argue. It simply activated. Deep beneath the planet's surface, and facilities erased from public records, systems older than most space agencies came online. Screens lit up with protocols written decades earlier, when humanity first realized it might not be alone, and decided that hope was not a strategy. A single designation appeared across multiple secure networks. Scenario: Black Sky. That designation bypassed civilian governments entirely. Control shifted. In one underground command center, a senior officer watched confirmation lights turn green one by one. No speeches were made. No debates followed. Notify Deep Space Command, she said. They already know, another officer replied. They always did. Deep Space Command was not a nation, and it was not an alliance. It was a contingency, created quietly, funded indirectly, and denied publicly. Its mandate was simple: if Earth ever faced an external authority claiming control, the response would not be emotional. It would be procedural. While politicians argued about diplomacy and surrender, encrypted signals began to move outward from Earth. They were not pleas for mercy or threats of retaliation. They were notices. Long-dormant assets acknowledged receipt. Autonomous systems shifted from observation to readiness. Human-made objects drifting far beyond the reach of civilian telescopes adjusted their orientation. Earth was still panicking. But Earth was no longer unprepared. The Galactic Federation had assessed humanity as fragmented, divided by borders, ideologies, and constant internal conflict. From the outside, that assessment seemed accurate. What the Federation could not see was how humans behaved when survival was no longer theoretical. They stopped debating values. They stopped seeking consensus. They followed rules. As the alien warning echoed across the planet, and the question of submission or annihilation dominated every conversation, a parallel process unfolded in silence. A response was being assembled. Not by politicians. Not by generals seeking glory. But by systems designed to remove ego from the equation entirely. Somewhere far from Earth, in a region of space intentionally left empty on every public star map, a human-built signal activated. Its tone was neutral. Its language precise. It was not asking permission. It was preparing to speak. The galaxy believed it had frightened Earth into compliance. It did not yet understand that fear was not humanity's greatest weakness. Disorder was. And when confronted by an external power, humans did not become more chaotic. They became structured. And structure, once activated, does not panic. It responds. Deep Space Command's oldest vault had not been opened in decades. Its location did not exist on any public map, nor did its funding appear in any national budget. The facility was buried beneath layers of rock, secrecy, and deliberate denial, because what it protected was never meant to inspire hope. It was meant to be used only if hope failed. As the final authorization codes were entered, the vault's central chamber awakened. A three-dimensional star map bloomed into existence, slowly rotating, each point marked not by color but by designation codes only a handful of humans still understood. At the center of the display appeared a single line of text. Forgotten Fleet Protocol, authorized. No one spoke. The Forgotten Human Fleet was not a reaction to the alien message. It had existed long before it. Its origins traced back to humanity's first unsettling realization: the universe was old, vast, and statistically unfriendly. When early signals hinted that intelligent life might already be out there, a small group of planners reached the same conclusion independently. If someone eventually noticed Earth, the worst mistake would be being unprepared or loud. So the fleet was built quietly. It did not belong to any country. No flags were painted on its hulls. No parade celebrated its construction. Its existence was buried beneath layers of legal deniability and bureaucratic misdirection. Every ship was designed with the same philosophy: endurance over dominance, control over chaos. They were not the most powerful vessels humanity could build, but they were the most disciplined. Each ship operated autonomously, yet no captain was ever alone. Decision-making was governed by layered protocols, ethical constraints, and pre-written response frameworks refined over generations. No single individual could escalate a conflict on instinct or pride. Emotion was treated as a variable to be contained. Far beyond Earth's commercial satellites and scientific probes, the fleet rested in engineered silence. Ships drifted in cold orbits, hidden within gravitational shadows, their systems asleep but intact. Until now. As activation signals reached them, engines warmed. Navigation systems recalibrated. Communication arrays aligned with a precision that bordered on ritual. One by one, vessels acknowledged readiness. At the fleet center, a flagship came fully online. UNS Accord. Unlike traditional command vessels, the Accord was not designed to inspire awe. Its interior was functional, austere, and deliberately unimpressive. Its purpose was not intimidation. It was arbitration. The ship's captain reviewed the incoming data without visible reaction. He was not chosen for charisma or ambition. He had been selected because he had once aborted a mission that could have made him a hero, because it violated protocol. He believed rules mattered more than victory. "Fleet status," he said. "Green across all divisions," an officer replied. "No deviations." "Begin recording all interactions," the captain ordered. "Full transparency." There was no speech. No rallying cry. The Forgotten Fleet did not need morale. It needed accuracy. The Galactic Federation believed humanity's strength lay in its weapons, its numbers, or its adaptability. They were partially correct. But the fleet existed for a deeper reason. Human history had proven one thing beyond doubt: humans were dangerous when unrestrained. Their greatest breakthroughs, and their worst atrocities, came from the same source: unchecked initiative. So the fleet was humanity's answer to itself. Every crew member had been trained to obey the law even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. The goal was not conquest, deterrence, or dominance. It was restraint. As the fleet completed its alignment, a message draft appeared on the Accord's command display. It was short, precise, legally structured. Not a threat. Not a plea. A response. The captain reviewed it once, then nodded. "Transmit when ready," he said. Somewhere across the galaxy, the Galactic Federation believed it was about to teach Earth the meaning of order. They did not yet understand that humanity had spent centuries struggling with order and surviving it. The Forgotten Fleet did not exist to challenge the galaxy's laws. It existed to demonstrate something far more unsettling. Earth already had its own. The Galactic Council did not expect a response so quickly. On Axiom Prime, warning transmissions were usually followed by fear, days of confused signals, fragmented pleas, and internal collapse. Earth's silence had been interpreted as hesitation. Then a transmission arrived. Not a burst. Not an emotional outcry. A structured legal packet. Council technicians paused as their systems translated it. The format was unfamiliar, layered with redundancies and citations rather than threats. At its center was a single request. Request for jurisdiction clarification. Archregent Xyler leaned forward. "They question our authority?" Justice Overseer Ctharn examined the data. "They do not reject it," he said slowly. "They analyze it." The channel opened. A human figure appeared on the central display, seated, still, and unimpressed. No armor. No banners. No attempt at intimidation. Just a uniform stripped of decoration, marked only by a small insignia, a balanced scale. "This is Captain Elias Morgan of the United Nations ship Accord," the human said calmly. "Before Earth can comply with any external legal system, we are required to understand its scope." The council chamber murmured. "No species has ever demanded clarification," Xyler said coldly. "Compliance precedes discussion." Morgan nodded slightly. "That may be your procedure. It is not ours." The human continued without raising his voice. "Your message claims universal jurisdiction. Please provide precedent, enforcement limitations, and accountability mechanisms for your governing body." Silence followed. Ctharn's eyes narrowed. "You are in no position to negotiate." "I'm not negotiating," Morgan replied. "I'm auditing." Council members exchanged uneasy glances. Xyler gestured sharply. "Explain your laws, then. You are accused of disorder. Your history proves it." Morgan tapped a control. Images appeared: human courts, military tribunals, civilian oversight hearings. "We are disorderly by nature," he said. "That is why our laws are strict." He explained how humans prosecuted their own war criminals. How officers were court-martialed for unlawful orders. How governments fell not to invasion, but to internal legal failure. "We do not excuse power," Morgan said. "We regulate it." Tharn interjected, "Your species commits atrocities." "Yes," Morgan agreed. "And we punish them." That answer unsettled the chamber more than defiance would have. The captain continued, "Your galactic law appears designed to preserve stability by controlling others. Human law exists to restrain ourselves. That difference matters." Xyler's voice sharpened. "You assume moral parity with us." "No," Morgan replied. "We assume liability." A pause. Morgan brought up another document. "Before Earth can accept your authority, we require assurance of legal reciprocity. Who investigates your enforcers? Who prosecutes violations of galactic law committed by the Federation itself?" No answer came. Because none existed. Tharn finally spoke. "Our law is absolute." Morgan leaned forward for the first time. "Then it isn't law," he said. "It's control." A ripple of unease spread through the council. The captain's tone remained professional, almost courteous. "Earth will not submit to a system where power answers only to itself. If your law applies to us, it must apply to you." Xyler's patience frayed. "This is insubordination." Morgan nodded again. "By your standards, yes. By ours, it's compliance." The human transmission did not end with a threat. It ended with documentation. A comparative legal framework. Conflict resolution protocols. Escalation limits. Ethical enforcement clauses. All offered for review. Earth is not rejecting galactic law, Morgan concluded. We are asking whether it meets the minimum requirements to govern. The channel closed. For the first time in its existence, the Galactic Federation faced a species that did not fear its power. Not because humanity was stronger, but because humanity recognized something the galaxy had forgotten. A law that cannot be questioned is not order. It is just force, with better language. The Galactic Federation had never put itself on pause before. Yet after the human transmission ended, that was exactly what happened. On Axiom Prime, the High Council chamber dimmed as internal deliberation protocols activated. Entire civilizations had been erased with less discussion than this. But Earth had done something unprecedented. It had not challenged the Federation's power with weapons. It had challenged its legitimacy. Archregent Xyler broke the silence. They hide defiance behind procedure. Justice Overseer Tharn disagreed. "No," he said slowly. "They hide discipline behind humility. That is more dangerous." After a brief internal vote, the Council reached a decision not out of confidence, but necessity. If Earth believed in law so deeply, then law would be the weapon used against it. "The humans will be tested," Xyler announced. "A compliance trial. Controlled. Observable. If they fail, enforcement proceeds with justification." The trial of humanity was declared. The test was elegant in its cruelty. A simulated conflict zone was created in a neutral star system, populated with artificial habitats, civilian proxies, and autonomous defense platforms. The scenario was simple: a humanitarian crisis combined with a strategic threat. Most species failed such trials within hours. They prioritized victory. They ignored safeguards. They escalated. Earth was given limited time to respond. 1 fleet. 1 command structure. Full observation by the Galactic Council. Captain Morgan received the trial parameters aboard the UNS Accord. He read them without expression. "Assessment criteria," he asked. "Use of force sufficiency," an officer replied. "Civilian impact. Command deviation. Unauthorized escalation." Morgan nodded. "Proceed under standard human rules of engagement." The fleet moved. Not aggressively. Methodically. As human ships entered the simulated system, they immediately reduced weapons readiness. Drones were deployed, not to attack, but to map civilian density. Evacuation corridors were established before a single hostile platform was engaged. The council watched closely. "They're wasting time," one counselor sneered. Then the first hostile drone fired. Human ships did not retaliate immediately. They issued warnings, recorded violations, isolated threats instead of erasing them. When force was finally used, it was precise to the point of discomfort. No excess fire. No pursuit beyond designated boundaries. Each action logged, justified, and timestamped. A Federation analyst leaned forward. "They're limiting themselves." Tharn's voice was low. "They always do." Midway through the trial, the scenario escalated. A simulated enemy used civilian shields, an illegal tactic by Federation standards, but one that historically forced rapid human escalation. The Council expected collapse. Instead, Captain Morgan halted all offensive action. Human commanders argued internally, briefly. Then they complied. Rescue operations began under fire. Losses were taken. Tactical advantage was sacrificed. Yet the fleet refused to violate its own laws. The Council grew restless. "They could end this now," Xyler snapped. "Yes," Tharn replied. "But they won't." The trial ended not with victory, but with containment. The hostile force was neutralized without annihilation. Civilian casualties were lower than Federation statistical minimums. More unsettling than the outcome was the process. Every questionable decision had been internally challenged. Every commander had accepted oversight. Every mistake had been documented without excuse. The final assessment data populated the council chamber. Compliance, unbroken. Escalation violations, 0. Unauthorized force usage, none. Silence followed. "They chose restraint over dominance," a counselor said quietly. Tharn turned to Xyler. "We expected savagery. We found governance." The final transmission from Earth arrived. "This concludes our participation in the trial," Captain Morgan said. "Our conduct reflects our laws, not our ambitions." Xyler steadied the human on the screen. For the first time, uncertainty crept into his tone. "You passed," he said. "But understand this, passing does not grant equality." Morgan inclined his head. "We're not asking for equality. We're demonstrating accountability." The channel closed. Around the council chamber, a realization began to take shape, slowly, uncomfortably. The Federation enforced order through fear of punishment. Humanity enforced order through fear of what happens when rules are ignored. The trial had not proven that humans were harmless. It had proven something far worse. They were capable of power and disciplined enough to restrain it. And that made the galaxy nervous. Fear did not arrive in the Galactic Federation the way it did on lesser worlds. There were no riots on Axiom Prime. No panic broadcasts. No visible breakdown of order. The Federation was too old, too controlled for that. Fear arrived quietly. It manifested as hesitation. Council analysts reviewed the trial of humanity again and again, searching for deception, hidden aggression, or delayed escalation triggers. They found none. The humans had done exactly what they claimed they would do, follow their own laws, even when it disadvantaged them. That was the problem. Archregent Xyler stared at the compiled reports. "They limit themselves intentionally," he said. "What kind of species does that?" Justice Overseer Tharn answered without looking up. "A dangerous one." Throughout the Federation, strategic models were recalculated. Previously, humans had been listed as a volatile but containable civilization. After the trial, that classification quietly changed. Unpredictable was replaced with self-regulating. That distinction unsettled military planners more than raw aggression ever had. Aggressive species burned out. Chaotic species collapsed. Disciplined species endured. Worse, humans did not rely on external authority to enforce restraint. They trusted systems, procedures, and accountability mechanisms that functioned even in the absence of oversight. One counselor voiced the unspoken concern. If they follow laws without fear of punishment, what happens when those laws permit retaliation? Silence answered him. The Federation had built its power on compliance. Galactic law worked because civilizations believed resistance was futile. But humans had not submitted, and yet they had not rebelled either. They had complied with their own rules instead. That defied the Federation's fundamental assumption that order must come from above. Security divisions began running worst-case simulations. In every scenario where the Federation escalated, humans responded the same way, calmly, proportionally, and with documented justification. There were no emotional spikes, no reckless counters. Just progression. Containment will not work, one strategist admitted. They adapt without destabilizing. Tharn understood the implication first. Humans are not a threat because they break rules, he said. They are a threat because they create better ones. Across multiple systems, member species began asking questions. Quiet ones. Dangerous ones. Why had the Federation never been audited? Who judged Galactic Law? What recourse existed against enforcement errors? Those questions had never mattered before. Now they did, because humans had proven such questions were not signs of weakness. They were signs of maturity. Meanwhile, aboard the UNS Accord, Captain Morgan reviewed Federation communications traffic. He did not smile when he saw the hesitation spreading through their networks. Fear was not victory. It was volatility. Maintain posture, he ordered. No provocation. No escalation. An officer hesitated. Sir, they're scared. Yes, Morgan replied. Which means they're unpredictable. The Federation attempted to regain control through language. Official statements reframed the trial as a success of galactic oversight. Earth was praised as a model emerging civilization. Behind closed doors, emergency amendments were drafted. For the first time in Federation history, the concept of mutual legal recognition was debated. Xyler resisted. If we yield authority, we invite fragmentation. Tharn countered, if we don't, we invite exposure. The fear deepened when intelligence reports revealed something else. Human law was not universal, but it was transferable. Other species had begun requesting copies of Earth's legal frameworks. Not to adopt them wholesale, but to study them. The Federation realized too late that humans had introduced an idea more dangerous than weapons. Choice. Not rebellion. Not conquest. Choice within order. Xyler finally voiced what no one wanted to admit. We assumed they would fear us. Tharn turned to him. They don't. Then what do they fear? Tharn's answer was quiet. They fear becoming what we are. That realization settled over the chamber like a shadow. The Galactic Federation did not fear humanity's fleets. It feared humanity's example. Because a civilization that obeys its own laws does not need to be ruled. And a galaxy built on unquestioned authority could not coexist comfortably with a species that asked one simple, devastating question. Who holds the law accountable? The Galactic Federation had always believed its greatest strength was unity. For millennia, that unity had been enforced by law, unchallenged, unquestioned, and absolute. Species complied not because they agreed, but because resistance had consequences. Order was maintained through certainty. Humanity introduced doubt. On Axiom Prime, the High Council reconvened under conditions that would have once been unthinkable. Observers from dozens of member civilizations were present, not as silent witnesses, but as participants. For the first time in Federation history, the chamber was not sealed. Transparency had been requested. And granted. Archregent Xyler addressed the assembly, his voice carrying less authority than it once had. The trial of humanity has concluded. Earth has demonstrated internal governance sufficient to prevent destabilization. That phrasing was deliberate. Carefully neutral. But no one missed what it avoided saying. Justice Overseer Tharn followed. The Federation must now determine whether galactic law exists to control civilizations or to serve them. The chamber stirred. A motion was introduced, Amendment 0. Its implications were seismic. Amendment 0 proposed that galactic law would no longer be absolute by default. Enforcement bodies would be subject to review. Member civilizations would have the right to challenge rulings through a structured legal process. In short, the law would answer to itself. Opposition was immediate. "This weakens us," one counselor protested. "Authority cannot survive debate." Tharn responded calmly. Authority that cannot survive scrutiny was never authority. It was fear. The vote was close. Closer than any in Federation memory. When the results appeared, silence fell across Axiom Prime. Amendment 0, ratified. The galaxy did not erupt in chaos. It exhaled. Earth's designation was formally revised. No longer Class 9 unregulated civilization, humanity was reclassified as a law-bearing civilization, a status previously reserved for the Federation's founding species. The transmission to Earth was brief. "Galactic law acknowledges your legal sovereignty," Xyler said, his tone restrained. "Earth is granted equal standing under amended statutes." Captain Morgan received the message aboard the UNS Accord. He read it once, then looked to his crew. "Record the acknowledgement," he said. No response required. "Sir," an officer asked, "we changed the galaxy. Shouldn't we say something?" Morgan considered that. "No," he replied. "Laws speak louder when they stand on their own." Across the galaxy, reactions rippled. Smaller civilizations began revisiting their compliance agreements. Enforcement fleets adjusted their doctrines. Legal academies requested translations of human jurisprudence. The Federation remained intact, but transformed. Not because humanity demanded power. Because humanity demonstrated restraint. In the years that followed, a quiet saying spread through diplomatic circles and military briefings alike. Earth is polite until laws are broken. It wasn't a threat. It was a reminder. The galaxy had once tried to rule humanity through fear of punishment. Now it understood something far more unsettling. Humans did not fear authority. They feared what happened when rules disappeared. And that fear had shaped them into something the universe had never encountered before. A species that did not conquer the stars. It governed itself among them.